In recent years, the charismatic stroke Pentecostal movement has really blossomed. Two of the fastest growing churches in the United Kingdom are the Roman Catholic Church and the Pentecostal stroke charismatic movement. Most people that I meet who call themselves born again are of the Pentecostal persuasion. For those that don't know, Pentecostalism retains the view that the gifts of the Holy Spirit have not ceased. In the book of Acts we read of the church coming together and the Holy Spirit falling upon all of them. However, the argument becomes, were it just for men or were it just for women, as far as the gift of speaking in tongues is concerned. The position that we take at this ministry is that men spoke in tongues, and they were known languages. Paul says, if any man speak in an unknown tongue, let it be by two or by three at the most, and that of course let one interpret. That of course is from 1 Corinthians 14:27. The unknown, of course, is in italics from your King James to show you that in the original Greek, quote unquote, the word unknown does not occur, and of course there is no original Greek, you understand. Yes, we have thousands of Greek manuscripts. The earliest we believe dates back to about 117 AD. There's no other manuscripts in antiquity as reliable as the New Testament Bible. Also, a quick side point, some people to this day believe that the New Testament was written in Hebrew, not Greek. The only problem with this is that we have not found any Hebrew manuscripts. There are some from the 3rd and 4th century, which of course are later translations from the Koine Greek, but all we have are Greek manuscripts, no Hebrew whatsoever. So going back to Acts chapter 2, the Holy Spirit fell on them all, and they started to speak in known languages. As you read through Acts, you find that the locals who happened to overhear this, that wasn't by chance of course, were quick to say that they speak in their own language. And Peter stands up with the 11 and he says, these men are not drunk, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and goes on to explain to them this is a work of the Holy Spirit. Now, some charismatic Catholics are very pleased to think that Mary spoke in tongues, but the problem with that is if she did speak in tongues, she would be in violation of 1 Corinthians 14, where Paul says that women are to be silent in the church, and the whole of that context is tongues. Obviously Paul is saying that women are not prohibited from singing in the church, and there are some people today who believe that women can't even sing in a church. Neither is Paul saying that women can't speak in a church per se. He's also clear that women are not to have authority over men, and all your liberals and feminists have tried to argue that that is speaking about a wife and a husband team. It won't work. It just will not work. The early church were led by men. Only in the last 50 years or so have we had women come into the ministry. Every denomination, Catholic, Protestant, Greek Orthodox, all of the Bible-believing churches have always had men leading in the ministry. Not all men are called to be church leaders, this is true, and that could be one of the reasons why so many churches are in such a state today. Carnal men being raised up by the flesh to do what they think they should do, and the Holy Spirit is very clear in the book of Acts that he will raise up men who are recognised by the church, and they will then ordain those men to be their leaders. We've said this before many times. You don't export a minister into your church and then give him an annual salary. That is not scriptural. You find something similar and abhorrent in Judges 17. The early church were led by men from within the assembly, and at best they were supported with gifts, not full-time wage. But we've dealt with this in another video, so we shan't go through this again. As far as tongues is concerned, Paul also makes it very clear that when the gift was in use, he says no more than 2 or 3. never when unsaved people are present, and often have you seen that violated, and always, always, always with an interpreter. An interpreter, of course, is somebody to translate. If a Chinese man is given a prophecy to a Japanese man, for example, and there's an Italian present, he's not going to have a clue what's being said. That is why you need somebody to interpret, to translate the gift of speaking in tongues. The late David Brainerd wept that he didn't have the gift of speaking in tongues. In fact, any missionary you care to name the last 300 years or more that has gone overseas has not had the gift of speaking in tongues. They've had to spend a long time learning the native language, and most times they've had to use locals to help out to get it more pure understanding. Yes, they can probably speak in broken Romanian or broken Ukrainian or broken Korean, but it's not fluent, and that's why a lot of missionaries have to pay locals to help translate for them. So you've got to be careful with speaking in tongues. It is mimicked, it is copied, and it is counterfeited by every group imaginable to man. The Satanists speak in tongues, the Mormons speak in tongues, and I've also been told that an archbishop in the UK speaks in tongues in the Catholic Church. This is the first time that I can recall, in the Western world at least, where an archbishop of the Catholic Church speaks in tongues. I've never known of a pope to speak in tongues. I've never known of a pope to raise the dead, and I've never known of a pope to make a prophecy which came to pass. Interesting, because to be truly apostolic, A, you have to be an eyewitness of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and B, you have to have all the sign gifts that go with being an apostle, and we have neither evident in the Catholic Church or even in the Mormon Church. The Mormons have so-called apostles, and even people in independent churches like to call themselves apostles. There are no apostles today. The word apostle means sent, one that is sent, and of course Acts chapter 1 makes it clear that you have to have been an eyewitness of the ministry of Jesus Christ, hence why Matthias was able to replace Judas Iscariot. He was one of the 70 that you find in Luke chapter 10. So watch out for speaking in tongues. Women don't speak in tongues. They never did speak in tongues. And as John MacArthur very wisely said, if women stopped speaking in tongues tomorrow, 90% of the charismatic stroke Pentecostal movement would cease. And we get a chance to look out for a book that MacArthur wrote called Charismatic Chaos. Very interesting. He goes all through the gibberish that you find in Pentecostal stroke charismatic churches. And if you want another book to look out for, Peter Ruckman, Why I Am Not a Charismatic. Both are opposite in their theology. One's a Baptist, one is a Calvinist. However, they both are sensationalists when it comes to the belief that the gifts have ceased. The greatest gift for today is regeneration. Never mind speaking in tongues, never mind raising the dead, or casting out demons. You can't do these things. A lot of people think that they can, but they can't. I've had my fair run of debates with these groups, and time after time you're given the opportunity to go onto the streets, into the highways and the byways, and cure blind people, deal with cripples, take the cancer out of children, and they won't do it. All they'll say to you is, come to our meeting tonight and we will lay hands on the sick. It won't work. Just finally, I'll leave you with a true story. Oral Roberts was having a healing meeting many years ago, and he had the old tent up. This is probably more of an American thing than something you'd expect to find in Britain, and scores of people came to be healed, they believed, and the tent crashed, fell on top of them all, and many were seriously injured. Roberts didn't lay hands on anybody, didn't heal them. He called for ambulances, and they came in the dozens and picked them all up and took them off to the local hospital. Roberts couldn't heal them. Even when Catherine Kutzman was very ill and dying, Roberts didn't go to her bedside and heal her. She died 10 out of 10 people die. The gift of healing, as you find it in these ministries, is bogus. And I was always surprised that Walter Martin, the brilliant and late Bible answer man, allowed his children to be educated in the Oral Roberts School. Clearly the man is a fraud, and it's quite concerning when people like the late Dr. Martin lacked the gift of discernment. But of course we must also remember that Mr. Martin was also ecumenical, used to pray with Jesuit priest Mitchell Pacqua. Had him on his show many times. So always be careful which ministry you support and who you pray for, but above all, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. Keep looking up to Jesus.